I picked up the load from a cold storage warehouse just outside Houston around 9:30 p.m. on a Thursday. For pallets, frozen goods, multiple stops through central Texas. It was supposed to be an easy overnight run. No border crossings, no hazmat, no signatures. Just roll in, drop off, roll out. The trailer was already sealed when I got there, heavy-duty plastic band with a digital tag. The yard guy handed me the manifest and walked off before I could even finish signing. That should have been my first red flag, but I didn't question it. I was tired, behind on bills, and the pay for this one was higher than usual. Way higher. The first hour was smooth. Clear road, cruise control on, good weather. I was somewhere just south of Waco when I heard the first sound. A thump. Not loud, but distinct. Like someone knocking on the inside of the trailer wall, just once. I tapped the brakes, listened. Nothing. It's not uncommon for loads to shift a little, especially if they're packed in a rush. I figured maybe one of the pallets had leaned into the wall. Still, I made a mental note to check it during the next stop. About 30 minutes later, I heard it again, this time, 2 knocks. Then silence. Now I was on edge. Reefer units aren't supposed to sound like that, and frozen meat doesn't knock. I grabbed the CB and called out. Any drivers near mile 143 hear something weird coming out the back of their reefer? Static. Then a low voice came through. You running east or west? Eastbound, I said. Houston to Round Rock. The voice paused. Then, if it's moving, pull over now. Some of these loads, they ain't what they look like. That shut me up. I killed the CB. A few miles later, I pulled into a dimly lit Shell station with a gravel lot and backed up to the far edge where the security light was still working. I grabbed my flashlight, climbed out, and walked around to the back of the trailer. Seal was intact. I lit up the undercarriage and tapped the steel. Nothing. Then I pressed my ear against the side panel. Thump. I jerked back like I'd been shocked. That wasn't cargo. I looked at the manifest again. For pallets. All listed as frozen assorted meat. But there was no weight listed. No product ID codes. No brand names. Just a barcode, one long string, printed with a cheap home labeler. I knew I shouldn't open it. But I did. I used my own bolt cutter to snap the plastic band, popped the latch, and pulled the doors wide. Cold air poured out. Inside, lined up in the center of the trailer, were 4 shrink-wrapped pallets. The plastic was cloudy and frosted, but I could still make out the outlines of boxes stacked from floor to ceiling. Except one of the stacks wasn't boxes. It was a large black crate plastic, not wood, about the size of a coffin, bolted to the floor with thick straps. It wasn't on the manifest. I climbed in slowly, boots echoing in the metal space, and moved closer. The front of the crate had mesh vents built into it. I knelt, but my ear to one. Silence. Then I whispered, hello? For a moment, nothing. Then, a cough. I nearly fell backward. There was someone in there. I reached for my phone and turned on the flashlight. That's when I noticed something in the corner of the crate, a small white tag duct taped to the lid. It had a name. Alyssa. Age 12. I staggered back. My chest tightened. I looked again at the manifest. There was no mention of passengers, no special handling, no emergency contacts. I called the police. The dispatcher sounded calm, too calm. Asked for my location, my license plate, my company. When I told her I had a child locked in a container inside my trailer, she paused and said, do not open it. Officers will arrive shortly. Do not leave the area. Then she hung up without another word. I didn't wait. I ran back to the cab and started the engine. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely shift into gear. I didn't know what to do. Every instinct screamed that I just stumbled into something I was never meant to see. As I pulled out of the lot, headlights flared in my mirror, a black SUV, no plates, coming fast. They tried to pit me on the exit ramp. Swerved into my trailer and pushed hard. I floored it. Got back onto the highway, doing 80 in a 65, praying I wouldn't lose control. The SUV stayed with me for a mile, maybe 2, then dropped off. I didn't stop until I hit a state trooper checkpoint outside Temple. I blew through the cones and slammed the brakes in front of the cruiser. Hands up. Out of the cab. Cuffed. I told them everything. At first, they didn't believe me. But when they opened the trailer and saw the crate, everything changed. They cut it open and found her. Alive. Drowsy. Weak. Wrapped in a thermal blanket and too dehydrated to speak. She'd been inside for at least 24 hours. She was wearing a hospital bracelet from a pediatric facility in Corpus Christi. The number had been scratched off. They took her to a local hospital. I gave every piece of info I had: manifest, phone logs, photos, trailer number, the whole 9 yards. The reefer unit? It had been tampered with. The inside temp was holding just above freezing, cold enough to hide heat signatures, not cold enough to kill. And the company listed on the bill of lading didn't exist. Neither did the warehouse address I'd picked the load up from. Carl, my dispatcher, claimed it was a third-party contract and stopped returning my calls. A month later, I was approached by 2 men at a rest stop in Louisiana. Suits. One had a badge, the other didn't show ID. They asked me not to talk about the incident. Said it could interfere with an ongoing trafficking investigation. They said they'd let me walk because I did the right thing, but warned me. If you open the wrong trailer again, don't expect anyone to show up in time. I haven't touched a reefer unit since, and every time I pull up to a warehouse now, I ask the same question before I hook the line. What's in the box? If they hesitate, I drive away. No job's worth not knowing. It was just past midnight when I saw her on the side of the highway, a few miles east of Flagstaff. I'd been driving for almost 9 hours straight, eyes dry, brain on autopilot, when my headlights caught the flash of a pale arm waving. She was standing near the guardrail with a suitcase at her feet. One wheel was broken, tilted like a bad ankle. She wasn't crying or stumbling around, just standing, waiting. Even from a distance, something about her posture struck me as odd. Too still, too upright, like someone posing for a photograph. I slowed down. It wasn't the smartest thing to do, I know that. Any long-haul driver could tell you, don't stop for strangers, especially not at night, especially not in the middle of nowhere. But she looked young, maybe 20 tops, dressed in jeans and a gray hoodie that hung off her like it didn't belong to her. I told myself she might be in real trouble. Abandoned, maybe, or worse. So I pulled onto the shoulder, threw on my hazards, and leaned over to roll down the passenger side window. You all right? I called out. She hesitated before walking closer. You headed east? Her voice was quiet, flat. She didn't ask where I was going or offer much explanation. She just pointed east like it was enough. Something about her expression, empty but polite, made me feel like I'd already said yes. I unlocked the door. Hop in. She climbed up without a word and sat down stiffly, clutching her backpack like it held something fragile. I started moving again, merging back onto the highway. She didn't thank me, just stared ahead, both hands wrapped tight around the straps of her bag. I told her my name, Adam, and asked where she was headed. Gallup, she said. Eventually. We had at least 3 hours to go. I figured we'd make small talk, but she stayed quiet. No phone, no earbuds, no interest in the radio. Just this weird, passive presence in my cab. I tried again, asking if she'd been stuck out there long. Too long, she said, still not looking at me. Then after a pause, she added, I shouldn't have waited so long. I didn't know what to say to that, so I let the silence ride for a while. About 30 minutes later, I started to feel it, that creeping tension in your chest when something doesn't feel right but you can't put your finger on it. She hadn't moved at all since getting in. Not a shift, not a stretch. She was clutching that bag like it was handcuffed to her. But what really unnerved me was where her eyes kept going. Not at the window, not at the road. At my glove compartment. She wasn't staring, not constantly. But every few minutes, her gaze would drift toward it, like she was expecting it to open. Or maybe she was waiting for me to open it. I tried to play it cool, clearing my throat and asking, everything all right? She didn't answer. Just looked at me for a second, and I swear, it was like she was studying my face, measuring it. I flicked on the dome light real quick, pretending to adjust something on the dash. Her hoodie had slipped slightly. On her collarbone, I saw a thin, pink line. Not fresh, but not old either. A healing cut, or maybe rope burn. That's when I really started to second-guess my decision to pick her up. I asked if someone had hurt her. She turned slowly, locked eyes with me, and said, Not recently. That was all. I didn't know what to do with that. I just kept driving, trying not to look nervous. My exit was still an hour off, and I wasn't about to pull into a truck stop in the middle of the night with a twitchy stranger in my passenger seat. But then she spoke again, softly, like she was just thinking out loud. He's not following me. I glanced over. Who? She didn't answer. She just kept staring at the glove box. That's when it hit me. She thought I was someone else. My mind started racing. Was she in trouble? On the run? Was someone after her? Or was she just unwell? I didn't want to accuse her of anything, but the way she was gripping that bag, It wasn't fear anymore. It was anticipation. I decided to end the ride early. I told her I was stopping at the next well-lit exit for gas. She didn't argue. We pulled into a Love station around 1:30 a.m. The place was mostly empty, just one other rig idling out back, lights off. I told her I needed to fuel up, and she nodded, finally moving her hands from the backpack. But instead of opening the door, she reached inside it. That's when I panicked. I jumped out and circled around the truck, pretending to check my tires. My heart was thudding so loud I thought I could hear it over the diesel pump. I glanced back through the passenger window. She was still inside, watching me. No weapon, no phone, just stillness. Then, finally, she opened the door and stepped down. She left the backpack behind. "I'm gonna wait inside," she said quietly. "You should check your glove box when I'm gone." I didn't move. I just watched her walk into the convenience store, slow and calm, like we hadn't just had the weirdest 90 minutes of our lives. I waited until she disappeared through the sliding doors before I climbed back in the cab and opened the glove box. Inside was a single item I had not put there. A disposable cell phone. It was turned off. No charger. Just sitting there like it had been waiting. I stared at it, trying to piece together what the hell was going on. Had she planted it there? But when? I pulled it out and held the power button. It came to life instantly. No lock screen, just one open text message thread. No names, just two numbers. The latest text, sent 20 minutes before I picked her up. Read. "He's heading east on I-40. Red Peterbilt. Plate matches. Should hit Flagstaff in 30. Then one more, time-stamped while she was in my truck. She's inside now. Don't lose her this time." I dropped the phone like it burned me. She hadn't been running from someone. She was leading someone to me. I shot a look back toward the store. She wasn't at the register. She wasn't by the coffee machines. The attendant behind the counter just shook his head when I asked if he'd seen her. I drove straight through to Albuquerque that night. Didn't stop. Didn't sleep. The next morning, I took my rig to a shop and asked them to sweep it for any trackers. They found one, wedged behind the rear panel of my sleeper cab. I didn't ask how long it had been there. I changed my route, changed my CB handle, even swapped trucks a few months later. But sometimes, when I pull off at lonely rest stops late at night, I still check my glove box. And sometimes, it's not empty. I was heading east on I-40, somewhere between Amarillo and Oklahoma City, when I saw him. It was just past 2 a.m., the dead hour, and the road had been empty for at least 20 miles. My headlights lit him up from maybe a quarter mile out. A man in a high-vis vest and hard hat, standing just off the shoulder next to a pair of orange cones. He was waving a flashlight back and forth, trying to flag me down. Now, if you've been trucking long enough, you know to be cautious when someone's trying to stop you in the middle of nowhere. But this guy looked official, reflective gear, clipboard in one hand, safety goggles dangling from his vest. He even had what looked like a white DOT pickup parked nearby, hazard lights flashing. I slowed down and edged onto the shoulder, tires crunching over gravel. He approached on my passenger side, stepping up on the running board. I cracked the window, keeping it halfway. "Evening, sir," he said. His voice was calm, friendly, southern drawl, maybe Texas panhandle. "We've got a chemical spill about 6 miles ahead. Tanker went over. They've got both lanes closed. Hazmat's inbound, but it's going to be a while." He held up the clipboard. I leaned toward the window and glanced at it. A few printed maps, some handwritten notes, no company logo. Nothing official, but I've seen worse. Sometimes local guys beat the feds to a scene and just try to manage things best they can. "Any detour?" I asked. He nodded. "Yeah. If you take County Road 173 north about a mile, it loops around and spits you back on a 40 just past the closure. I'm directing trucks that way for now." I thanked him and pulled forward slowly, turning off onto the dirt path he'd pointed to. The moment my trailer cleared the cones, I had a weird moment of hesitation. Just a small, instinctive pinch in my gut. I looked in the side mirror, hoping to catch one last glimpse of the guy, but he was already gone. The vest, the cones, the pickup, all vanished in the rear lights like they'd never been there. That's when I got on the CB. "Breaker 19, I called out. "Anybody up near mile marker 261? You seen any kind of spill on the road?" Static for a few seconds. Then a voice crackled back. Older guy, smoky tone. "Negative, driver. I came through there 10 minutes ago. Road's clear." I asked if he saw any cones or workers. Nope, just you out there. What's going on? I didn't answer right away. I was already too deep down the side road, and the dirt path was narrowing, curling through tall brush on either side. I didn't like the feel of it. I checked my GPS, no route. Just a gray space, like I'd gone off map. I slowed down. Then I saw the boot prints. They ran alongside the road in the dirt. Heavy treads, same pattern as work boots. At first it looked like just a single trail, but when I stopped and got out with my flashlight, I noticed something that froze me in place. There were 3 sets of tracks, side by side, all leading into the brush. Deep imprints, fresh, but only one trail came back. Same treads, single file. I got back in the truck and started backing up carefully. Every instinct was screaming now. This wasn't a detour, it was a setup. I'd just started reversing when I saw another set of hazard lights flicker behind the brush ahead. Another truck. I killed my lights and eased forward just enough to peek around the bend. It wasn't a truck. It was a stripped-down flatbed cab. No trailer, parked nose first in a clearing. Its doors were open, cab lights on. And behind it, under a tarp, I could see the unmistakable outline of tire stacks and cones. Same ones I'd passed. Same white pickup nearby, but this time, no lights. No man in a vest. Just the faint red glow of taillights on an empty vehicle, half buried in overgrowth. That's when I hit reverse and didn't stop. I kept my eyes locked on the rear view, counting every second until I was back on the main road. I floored it. I didn't even look back until I was 20 miles down the interstate, parked under a gas station canopy in Elk City. I called my dispatcher, told him everything. He didn't say much at first. Then he asked if I remembered the guy's face. I told him I barely got a look, mostly saw the vest, the clipboard, the flashlight beam. He was quiet for a second, then said something that didn't make sense at the time. We had a guy go missing last year around that area. Pulled over to help with what he thought was an accident. Never heard from him again. I asked if it was reported. He said yes, but nothing ever came of it. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every sound outside the motel window made me flinch. I kept picturing the moment the man disappeared from my mirror, like he was never really there to begin with. 2 days later, I was parked at a rest stop in Missouri when I spotted another trucker sitting at a picnic table, staring at his phone. We got to talking, and I told him what happened. He stared at me for a few seconds, then pulled out his phone, opened his gallery, and showed me a photo. It was a blurry shot of a guy standing on the side of the road in a high-vis vest, holding a clipboard. Taken in Arizona, he said. I was flagged down, but didn't stop. It was the same man, same vest, same posture, same white pickup. But here's the thing. The photo was dated 3 months before mine, and in the background, barely visible through the darkness, was my rig, sitting there, hazards on, like I'd been parked the whole time. I've been driving trucks for almost 11 years now, and this is the first time I've seriously considered quitting for good. It happened a few months back, during a run I wasn't even supposed to take. My dispatcher, a guy I've worked with on and off named Carl, called me around 8 p.m. on a Friday. Said another driver bailed last minute, and they needed a sealed trailer moved from a lot outside Lubbock to a drop yard just outside of Albuquerque. He said it was preloaded, no signature needed, no stops, just a straight haul and decent pay for the distance. Sounded like easy money, so I said yes. I'd regret that decision within hours. When I pulled into the yard, it was already dark. There was one trailer waiting, parked in the back, matte gray, no company markings, no numbers on the side. No paperwork either, just a bill of lading taped inside a plastic sleeve on the door. The origin and destination fields were both listed as internal codes, not city names. That was strange, but not unheard of for certain companies. What was weird was the security. There was a single guard sitting in a folding chair near the gate, but he didn't look like any yard security I'd ever seen. He wore plain clothes, jeans, flannel shirt, and had no radio, no clipboard, nothing. Just sat there watching me. When I got out to hook the trailer, he stood up, nodded once, then sat back down. Didn't say a word. I pulled out of the yard just after 9 p.m. The trailer was light, handled smooth, but I noticed right away that the tracking system wasn't registering the load. Nothing on the onboard tablet, no digital signature from the yard, no update to dispatch. It was like I'd picked up a ghost trailer. Still, I figured maybe it was just a private run. Happens sometimes when a company wants to move something off the books. But about 30 minutes down the road, I noticed the SUV. Unmarked, dark gray, same vehicle I thought I'd passed earlier near the yard. It stayed about 5 car lengths behind me, never speeding, never falling back. When I changed lanes, it followed. When I exited to grab coffee at a Love station, it pulled into a lot across the street and just sat there, lights off. At this point I was uneasy, but not panicked. I've seen weird, paranoid-looking security details before. Sometimes drivers get followed just to make sure they're not screwing around. But then it kept happening. 2 more hours down the road, and it was still back there. Sometimes farther, sometimes closer. Always in the same lane. I called Carl. He didn't pick up. I texted, "You sure this is a legit run? Trailer's unmarked and I'm being tailed." He replied, "Don't worry about it. Do not open the trailer. Drop and go. Call me after." The wording bothered me. I didn't say anything about opening the trailer. That's when I started to get paranoid. About 30 miles outside of Santa Rosa, I turned off onto a quiet side road and pulled into a small rest area with a couple picnic tables and vending machines. No cameras, no lights. I parked, killed the engine, and waited. 10 minutes later, the SUV rolled past on the highway. I gave it another 5 minutes, then walked around back and checked the trailer door. The seal was a thick plastic band, standard, but it looked off. It wasn't tight. I leaned in and realized it had already been broken and reconnected, like someone looped it shut again to look undisturbed. That was enough for me. I took a box cutter from the cab and sliced the seal clean. The latch came open easy. I cracked the door and aimed my flashlight inside. The trailer was almost empty, just 2 large wooden crates, strapped down near the front. I climbed in. The first crate had ventilation holes and what looked like finger smudges near the corners. The second had water bottles stuffed in a mesh pouch on the side. Both were bolted shut with metal clasps and had no labels, no serials. But then I heard it. A sound faint, soft. A cough. I froze. Another noise followed, something shifting inside the second crate. I leaned closer. "Hello," I whispered. There was silence. Then, slowly, the unmistakable sound of a whisper from inside the box. "Is it him?" I dropped the flashlight. My pulse spiked. I backed out of the trailer and slammed the doors shut, sealing them with a spare lock I kept in the side box. I sprinted back to the cab, climbed in, locked every door, and sat there trying not to shake. The SUV was gone, but whoever, or whatever, was in that crate. They were talking. I tried to call Carl again. No answer. I texted, "There are people in the trailer. I'm done. Calling the cops." No response. I drove to the next exit, pulled into a gas station, and made the call. 2 state troopers met me within 20 minutes. I told them everything. They looked skeptical at first, especially when they saw I had broken the seal. But when they opened the trailer and saw the crates, they changed fast. They cut open the first box. Empty, except for a harness and straps inside, like restraints. The second took longer. When they pried it open, I heard one of them mutter, "Jesus Christ." A girl was inside. Couldn't have been older than 17. Weak, eyes adjusting to the light. She didn't scream. She just looked at the officers and said, "Which one are you?" They took her out, wrapped her in a blanket. She didn't say much after that. Wouldn't answer questions. Wouldn't say who had put her there. The troopers questioned me for hours. Eventually DHS showed up. Then someone from the FBI. I gave them everything. Carl's number, the address of the yard, the strange guy in the flannel, even the plate of the SUV I managed to jot down. Here's the part that still gets me. The yard? Gone. When they sent someone out there the next morning, it was empty. No trailers, no guard, no building. Just an abandoned lot with tire marks and a broken chain link fence. And Carl vanished. Disconnected phone. Email bounced. Company claimed he never worked there. No record, no employee ID. I handed off everything and got cleared eventually. But I knew I'd been set up to move something illegal, something human. My name was in their system, my rig on their logs. If I hadn't opened that trailer, I don't know what would have happened. And I sure as hell don't know where that girl would have ended up. I still drive, still haul, but I check every trailer now. And every so often, I get a blocked call, no caller ID. I never answer. But one time, I let it go to voicemail. All it said, in a voice I didn't recognize, was, "We'll use a different name next time." I was somewhere between Gallup and Winslow when I hit that wall of exhaustion that sneaks up on you hard and fast. You know the one, where every line on the road starts to blur and your eyes sting no matter how wide you open them. I'd misjudged my timing, and there weren't any decent truck stops for another hour, so when I saw an old dirt lot behind what looked like a shut-down Texaco, I figured it'd have to do. The building was boarded up, all the lights were dead, and the signs were sun-faded to the point of unreadability. But the lot itself was flat and quiet, tucked just off a bend in a side road. Didn't seem like anyone had been through in a while. No other trucks. No cameras. Nothing. Perfect for a few hours of sleep. I pulled around to the far corner of the lot, backed in near a cluster of tall, untrimmed mesquite trees, and killed the engine. The air was dry and still. Not a single sound, no bugs, no animals. Just that eerie silence you only get in places that feel completely forgotten. I did the usual, locked both doors, shut the sleeper curtain, set a soft alarm for 3 a.m. I figured I'd nap a bit before getting back on the road so I could beat the sun into Flagstaff. It was around 1:45 when I woke up. Not from the alarm. From the sound of gravel crunching outside. Not footsteps exactly, just that slow, uneven pressure of weight shifting on loose stone. At first, I thought maybe another driver had pulled in. But then I realized it was moving in a slow circle around my cab. Crunch, crunch, pause. Then again, crunch, crunch. I sat up, heart already going. I didn't lift the curtain yet, just listened. Another pause. Then a light tapping sound. Not a knock. Not metal on metal. Just the faintest ticking against the passenger side window in a steady rhythm. Not impatient. Almost playful. Tick, tick, tick. I slipped my hand down between the mattress and the floor where I kept a small utility knife. My flashlight was on the dashboard. No way I was reaching for it without making noise. The tapping stopped. Then came a single thump against the door. Low, like someone had leaned on it. Followed by silence. I waited. 5 minutes, maybe 10. I don't know. Time stretches when your chest is tight like that. Eventually, I pulled the curtain back just a crack, just enough to peek toward the lot. Nothing. I sat for a bit longer before finally grabbing the flashlight and flicking it on. I braced myself and opened the curtain fully. Still nothing. But when I shined the light at the passenger window, I saw fingerprints. Smudged streaks across the glass, like someone had run their hand in a slow circle. For fingers. No thumb. And they weren't mine. I leaned forward and scanned the lot. No movement. No lights. Just that same boarded-up gas station and the tall mesquite trees in the dark. I was done. Sleep could wait. I jumped into the driver's seat, started the engine, and flipped on my lights, and froze. My trip meter said I'd driven 2.4 miles. The truck was parked exactly where I'd left it. Same lot. Same spot. But the dash clearly read 2.4 miles. The clock had advanced by nearly an hour. I hadn't touched the ignition. I hadn't moved. At least, I didn't think I had. I threw it into drive and pulled out of there so fast I nearly took out a sapling. I didn't look back. I got to a real truck stop outside Winslow, parked under the canopy lights near the diner, and just sat in the cab for a while trying to calm down. That's when I noticed my GPS. The screen had frozen, stuck on a gray path I hadn't programmed. A winding detour that led nowhere, ending in the middle of an unmarked patch of desert. The timestamp on the trip history said it had been entered at 2:12 a.m. Right during the window I was asleep. I checked the route log. No saved destination. No voice command record. Just that gray line. And a note I never typed that said, resume trip. I didn't sleep the next night. Or the night after that. Later, when I got back home, I took my dash cam footage and dumped the files onto my laptop to review the night I'd stopped in that dirt lot. The first hour showed nothing. Just stillness. Me getting into the sleeper, killing the lights. But at 2:04 a.m., the footage glitched for a second. Just a quick stutter. Then the cab light turned on. Faintly, you could see my curtain slide open from the inside. And my driver door, unlocked. Then came the part that I still can't make sense of. I watched frame by frame as the truck shifted into drive. But I wasn't in the seat. The cab was empty. No driver. And the truck slowly rolled forward, made a gentle turn through the lot, circled past the trees once, and parked again in the same spot. Engine off. Door still locked. At 2:39 a.m., the curtain opened again, and I came stumbling out of the sleeper looking groggy, confused, rubbing my face like I'd just woken up from the best nap of my life. That footage still sits on my desktop. I've shown it to a few other drivers. Nobody has an answer. One guy asked if I sleepwalk. Another said maybe someone had a second key. But the truck's GPS access is tied to my phone. The dashcam data was real time, and the route log can't be altered manually. I've thought about it every night since. The fingerprints, the trip meter, the route I didn't enter, and the one question I still can't shake. If I didn't drive that truck around the lot, then who or what did?